According to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, there are approximately 90,000 missing persons in the United States at any given time. With the advancement of modern detective work and advanced scientific methods, such as genealogy testing, the vast majority of missing person cases end up being solved today. Even so, sometimes investigators just aren't able to provide enough conclusive evidence to put the pieces together on some of these cases, and they go unsolved. There have been some devastating, very suspicious missing persons cases in recent times that definitely fall into this category. Throughout history, though, all around the world, certain missing person cases have left investigators and families struggling to find answers. When there is little evidence to no evidence and no eyewitnesses, missing persons cases tragically end up being closed and unsolved. Come with us as we walk through some of the most puzzling and tragic missing persons cases throughout history all around the globe. Today we're going to look at 14 creepy missing persons cases that were eventually solved. Number 1. Vanessa Julienne. Vanessa Julienne was a 20-year-old soldier in the U.S. Army, stationed at Fort Hood in Texas. She told her friends and family that another soldier was sexually harassing her. Julienne said she did not file a formal report because other female soldiers who have spoken out got into trouble. She disappeared on April 22, 2020, after parking her car in her unit's parking lot. Her keys, ID, and money were found at her work on base. On June 30th, 2020, Vanessa Julienne's body was discovered at a sophisticated burial site in Belton, Texas. When his girlfriend started talking to the police, Aaron David Robinson ran away from Fort Hood, where he was enlisted. He shot himself when police found him. Robinson's girlfriend, Cecily Ann Aguilera, was eventually charged with tampering with evidence for helping him dispose of Julienne's body. It's believed that the two dismembered the body and buried it under concrete after Robson beat Julienne to death with a hammer at the armory on base where they both worked. A follow-up investigation found a permissive environment for sexual assault and sexual harassment at Fort Hood. Number 2. Desmond Amuffa. Desmond Amuffa was a 29-year-old YouTuber using the name Edika. He posted a video titled, "I'm Sorry," where he talked about his mental health struggles and apologized to people he felt he had wronged by pushing them away. That night was the last time anyone in Amuffa's life spoke to him. His belongings, including his phone, money, ID, and Nintendo Switch, were discovered in a bag on the Manhattan Bridge. 5 days later, his body was discovered in the East River in New York City. Investigators believed Amuffa committed suicide by jumping off the Manhattan Bridge. Number 3. Jamie Koss. Jamie Koss was a 13-year-old from rural Wisconsin who was kidnapped from her family's home in the middle of the night after a gunman wearing a black coat and ski mask broke into her house and killed her parents. Her father was killed when he went to the door to see what was going on. Her mother was killed after the intruder shot his way into the locked bathroom where Jamie and her mother were hiding. The intruder tied Jamie and put her in his trunk. He then drove 20 seconds before pulling out onto a side road and turning off his car to hide from police who were responding to Jamie's mom's 911 call. A massive search was held for Jamie Koss and a reward was offered. For 88 days, Koss was held about an hour away from her hometown in Gordon, Wisconsin, by Jake Thomas Patterson. Patterson forced Koss to sleep in his bed and hide under his mattress when he had guests. When he left to run errands one day, Koss escaped his house and found a neighbor walking her dog and asked for help. The neighbor recognized Jamie Koss from the news and immediately got her help. When approached by police, Patterson said, "I did it." He said he saw Jamie getting off the bus one day and decided to take her. Koss now lives with her aunt and was given $25,000 in reward money for rescuing herself. Jake Thomas Patterson is now serving 2 consecutive life sentences for murder plus 40 years for kidnapping. Number 4. Jamal Khashoggi. Jamal Khashoggi was a journalist living in Turkey. He wrote for the Washington Post and was critical of his home country, Saudi Arabia. He had published a paper right before his disappearance where he says that the Saudi government had banned him from Twitter. On October 2, 2018, Jamal went to the Saudi consulate in Istanbul to get paperwork in order for his upcoming wedding. CCTV recorded him entering the building but not exiting. He was never seen or heard from again. In November 2018, the CIA reported that Jamal was assassinated on the orders of the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. They believed at the embassy Jamal was ambushed, suffocated, and dismembered by 15 trained assassins. His body may have been destroyed by acid. The United Nations hold the state of Saudi Arabia at fault for his death. Number 5. Mollybbetts. Mollybbetts was a 20-year-old psychology major at the University of Iowa, who was home for the summer in Brooklyn, Iowa. On July 18, 2018, Tibbetts went jogging and never returned. Her family reported her missing the following day. She had sent her boyfriend a message on Snapchat before she left for her run, as he was the last person to hear from her, but he was confirmed to be 2 hours away at work at the time she disappeared. Molly's disappearance was highly publicized and there was a lot of public interest in her case. When police found CCTV footage showing a Chevy Malibu driving by Tibbetts several times during her run, they questioned the car owner, Christian Behan Riviera. Riviera was 24 and confessed to kidnapping and murdering Molly Tibbetts and led the police to her body. Rivera has since pled not guilty to first-degree murder. The case went to trial and he was found guilty. In Iowa, this sentence carries a sentencing guideline of life in prison without parole. Number 6. Sharon Matthews. Sharon Matthews was a toddler in Richardson, Texas, who was reported missing by her adopted father, Wesley Matthews, on October 7, 2017 at 8 a.m. Sharon was adopted by Wesley and his wife, Cindy, as a part of an international adoption from India. Wesley Matthews says that at 3 a.m. he was feeding Sharon, who was on a special diet, because she was undernourished prior to being adopted. That night, Sharon did not want to drink her milk, so Wesley made her stand in the alley outside of their home. He told police that when he went to check on Sharon after 15 minutes, she was gone. He then decided to do laundry. Later, police discovered that Matthews' SUV had left the home for about an hour between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. On October 22, 2017, Sharon's body was discovered in a culvert near the Matthews home. Wesley Matthews then claimed that Sharon choked on her milk and died, and he dumped her body in a moment of panic. Sharon had a history of troubling hospitalizations and injuries consistent with abuse. Her official cause of death was homicidal violence. Wesley Matthews was found guilty of murder and is serving a life sentence. He believes he should get a new trial because images of Sharon's body and injuries were shown at his trial, which he believes is unfair. Number 7. Kim Wall. Kim Wall, age 30, was a Swedish journalist who disappeared in 2017 while on board the submarine UC-3 Nautilus, built by Danish entrepreneur Peter Madsen. She was on the submarine for the purpose of interviewing Madsen. It was supposed to be a 2-hour engagement. Wall was reported missing after the ship failed to show up to port later that day. The submarine was found sunken the next day. Peter Madsen was rescued from the ship and then arrested for Wall's murder. Pieces of Wall's body were found in the area of the sunken Nautilus, and more washed ashore. Madsen claimed that Wall suffered an accident aboard the Nautilus, and he was forced to dismember her body and dump it into the ocean. A police investigation found that Peter Madsen had videos of women being dismembered on his computer and may have been looking to act out a dismemberment strangling fetish on an unsuspecting female victim. There's evidence that Madsen ejaculated in his underwear while committing the crime. He was charged with murder, indecent handling of a corpse, and sexual assault. Wall is believed to have been tortured. Peter Madsen is serving a life sentence for his crimes, but he briefly escaped in 2018 by telling his prison psychologist he had a bomb. Number 8. Yingzhong. Yingzhong was a 26-year-old graduate student from China who was visiting the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. On June 9, 2017, she meant to take a bus from campus to an apartment she was interested in leasing. She got on one bus, then missed the bus she was intended to transfer to. CCTV shows that she was sitting at the second bus stop waiting for the next bus, and then getting into a black Saturn Astra that pulled up to the bus stop. At 1:39 p.m., she sent the apartment's leasing agent a message that said that she was running late and would arrive around 2 p.m. Zhong never arrived, and she was reported missing that night. On June 17, 2017, her father, aunt, and her boyfriend arrived in the U.S. to search for her. She and her boyfriend had planned on marrying in the fall. A $50,000 reward was offered for information leading to the arrest of the person responsible for her disappearance. Brent Allen Christensen, a former grad student at the university, confessed to luring Zhong into his car at her bus stop while she waited to transfer buses. He promised to give her a ride, but instead took her to his home, where he raped and choked her, eventually beating her with a baseball bat. Christensen dismembered her body and spread it across several dumpsters. Her body was unable to be recovered. Christensen lived with his wife, who was traveling at the time. Christensen also had another girlfriend who was not involved in the murder. The girlfriend agreed to wear a wire, assuming her boyfriend was not guilty. The audio recording is what led Christensen's arrest. On the tape, he told her that he was a serial killer and said that Zhang was his 13th victim, though police doubt the veracity of those statements. Number 9. Akbar Saliabiro. Akbar Saliabiro was a 25-year-old man living in Indonesia who was reported missing by his family on March 25, 2017. 2 days after he disappeared, his remains were found inside of a reticulated python snake. It was the first time an adult was known to be killed and fully eaten by a snake, but it has happened to another woman since, in the same village as Saliabiro. Number 10. Annie Lee. Annie Lee was a 24-year-old grad student at the Yale School of Medicine's Department of Pharmacology. On September 8, 2009, CCTV showed Lee entering the Yale research building where she worked. No footage showed her leaving the building. As she was planning to get married on September 13th, a search immediately began. Her purse containing her phone and money were found in her office in another campus building. On September 13, Lee's planned wedding day, her body was found in the research building. She had been strangled and stuffed into the wall. Because the building requires people to swipe their ID card before entering certain rooms, it was quickly deduced who murdered Annie Lee. Lee's co-worker Raymond J. Clark III, a technician in the lab, who is now serving 44 years for her murder. Annie Lee had previously tried to bring attention to crime and safety on campus. Number 11. Sierra Jogin. Sierra Jogin was a 20-year-old college student when she disappeared on July 19, 2016. Jogin was riding home from her boyfriend's house but never made it home, even though her boyfriend had ridden alongside her for part of the distance on his motorcycle. A local man, James D. Worley, was quickly identified as a suspect. He had previously been convicted of an eerily similar attempt, kidnapping, and was released after only 3 years. The tool he used to threaten a young girl on her bicycle previously, a screwdriver, was found at the scene. He lived 2 miles from where Jogin's bicycle was found. Worley is now awaiting the death penalty. Number 13. Charles Bothu V. Charles Bothu V was a 12-year-old boy who was reported missing by his parents. 11 days later, while Charles' father was being interviewed live on the Nancy Grace Show, he was discovered malnourished in his parents' basement. Despite the boy's thinness, he was being kept home from school in order to do rigorous daily exercises. He was also hit with PVC piping. His parents were charged with torture and second-degree child abuse. If you want to watch the interview when Nancy Grace tells the dad that his son was found alive and missing, that he was not missing and he was in his basement, you can check it out on the page where I got the story from. Number 13. Jessica Hirino. Jessica Hirino was a 25-year-old who worked at an Exxon gas station in Norton Shores, Michigan. She was engaged and had a young son. On April 26, 2013, Hirino disappeared from her late shift at the gas station around 11 p.m. Her personal belongings, including her car and money, were left at her work. A silver Chrysler Town & Country belonging to a man behaving strangely was observed at the scene. When a customer arrived at 11:10 p.m. and found the gas station abandoned, he called 911. Police arrived at 11:25 p.m. and discovered the cash register was not robbed, but that Hirino was missing and there were blood droplets outside the door. 3 years later, after Jessica disappeared, a local man named Jeffrey Thomas Willis was charged with her kidnapping and murder. He was identified as a frequent customer who was trying to flirt with her on previous occasions, and he drove a silver Chrysler Town & Country. When police got a search warrant for Willis's home, they found a folder labeled Vix on his computer. They also found non-simulated porn featuring necrophilia and murder on his computer. Willis is currently serving a life sentence for Jessica's murder. From jail, he was also convicted of murdering Rebecca Sue Bletch, a woman who was murdered while out for a jog a year after Jessica disappeared. Jessica's family and friends are trying to pass Jessica's Law in Michigan, which would require gas stations that are open all night to either install security cameras or to have 2 employees working the late shift. Number 14. Allison June BadenClay. Allison June BadenClay was a 43-year-old Australian woman who went for a morning walk and never returned. Her husband, Gerald BadenClay, reported her missing. The couple had 3 daughters under 10. 10 days later, on April 30th, 2012, Allison's body was discovered in a nearby creek. Her husband was tried and found guilty of murdering her. While Allison had a successful career, her husband was struggling and he was having affairs. Allison's father was made executor of her estate so that her husband would not receive the payout from her $800,000 life insurance policy. So there you have it, 14 creepy missing persons cases that were eventually solved. I may have screwed up the count with the names, but unfortunately I was not going to go back and do the entire narration again, so if I did screw up, please forgive me. But this has been Just Plain Creepy, and I'll catch you in the next